Welcome to the Green and Gold Weekly here at the GreenandTruth.net where the legends speak. My name is Joe Pritchard, and along with me is former Packer Don Horn. And Don, there was quite an exciting battle between the Packers and the Bears this past weekend.
Yeah, there sure was. The monsters of the Midway. In Green Bay, the oldest rivalry in professional football, and it's quite a cold afternoon too. Quite a cold afternoon up there. In Soldier by the Lake up there, and normal. Those games. I mean, you throw the records out, and pretty much anything goes. And gosh, man, I was kind of worried there. I thought the Pack went to sleep there in the fourth quarter for a while, but luckily we woke up.
That is for sure. Yeah, for three quarters, it looked like you could take the records and just go, okay, well, we know who the better team is here. The Packers seem to have found a star running back and a guy that they drafted as a wide receiver, Ty Montgomery. I've been talking about him just about all year, but thinking he'd be a great threat as a receiver, and he showed that he might be one of the better running backs in the league with that performance.
Gosh, I think you're right there, Joe. I mean, I was impressed with him. I think I mentioned that last week too. I mean, where'd they find this guy? And discover that he had some talent and ability to run like he does. He's got that uncanny sixth sense, kind of like Paul Horney used to have inside the 5-yard line. He was the finest running back I've ever saw. Inside the 5-yard line, he just had a way to sniff out the goal line, and Ty is just uncanny when he gets the ball. It's exciting too. So I'm impressed with him, and I'm sure glad Devontae got some stickum on his hands like old Fred Biletnikoff used to do back in the day. A couple of drops, and then Aaron went right back to him and hit him on a couple of passes and gave him confidence again. But those cold days up there by the lake, man, I tell you, it gets cold.
Right, and the Packers had Montgomery is out from, I believe, Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. So he didn't see a lot of that cold weather in college ball. But my goodness, for a guy that's never played running back before but always wanted to try it, he looks like a natural.
Yeah, natural. He just got, he just knows where the hole is. He knows where it's going to be. He just has that uncanny, that sixth sense. It's just amazing. Being an old quarterback, we love that in our running backs. We love that when they have that, that ability to sniff out and find the hole and get through more often than not. So, just a great, exciting game, which those Packer Bear games always are. Now, isn't the series tied up now?
It is dead tied after all these years.
After 194. Outings, and it's neck and neck.
I can't believe it myself. I remember growing up and reading the old yearbooks. They'd always have the records as far as series goes between these teams, and I remember the Bears were up quite a chunk by the end of the late 80s. It wasn't looking too good. It looked like the Bears were quite dominant over the Packers, but that was the end of that era, and the new era was right around the corner. Little did we know.
Yeah, so true. That's what it does. It's kind of peaks and valleys, but just a great rivalry, and always has been. Just a great rivalry. But now we got we got the Vikings coming to town, and that's Saturday. That's Saturday, I think, isn't it? Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that is Saturday. We'll actually be on the road between the southeastern portion of Wisconsin to the west central part where I grew up. So we'll be listening to that and heading over to a relative's house that actually cheers for the Vikings. So I'll have to definitely be making sure I wear some green and gold that evening when we get up that way. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I tell people you have to cross dress up there, and you get up to those kind of border time, those border towns, and where they have allegiances to either one or the other team right there close to the border. Excuse me.
Yeah, it made for some interesting conversations and some interesting back and forth growing up. My father's side was much more Packer fans, and my mother's side had a few that converted to picked the Vikings in the 70s. And when you hear about when they were growing up, Bud Grant and the Purple People Eaters. I guess I can't blame them, especially since Channel 4 came in a lot better than Channel 8 out of lacrosse kids. But I still can't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember those cold games up there too. In Minneapolis when Bud Grant wouldn't let those guys wear gloves and no heaters on the bench either. Up there in the old the old Metro Stadium up there, I believe, where they tore it down, which is the site of that that shopping center up there now. So, but those guys,
the big mall, yeah,
the big America's Mall or something like that. But that was the site where those guys, the Vikings, would sneak over from time to time and try to get on our bench just to get close to the heaters because Bud Grant wouldn't let them have heaters on the sidelines.
No, Bud Grant was probably pretty warm because he had spent his coaching career before Minnesota up in Winnipeg, which is a little bit more cold.
Yeah, he's used to that. What I was impressed with him too was that last year he came out on the field and it was so cold up there, and he had short sleeves on.
Yeah, it was. They played
that playoff game, and he came out and he did some type of a ceremony before the game, and he's pretty tough hombre, pretty tough guy.
Yeah.
I was always impressed with him, of course. And the older I get now, now that I'm kind of retired and been out of the game for quite a few years, I get to know a lot of these old Vikings and Bears and stuff, and most of those guys are pretty good guys. I'm going, and used to play against you guys. I thought you were a lot meaner. You guys are pretty nice guys now. But we we love telling the war stories.
I would imagine so. Probably a little bit easier for some of the guys in purple to tell their war stories under Bud Grant. They did have quite a run there for a while.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, you're right, especially in the 70s, but they just never could. They never could get the big one, could they?
Nope, and we don't let them forget it either. That's for
sure. And keep doing that. And I just sure hope they come up on the short end this week when they come up there to Lambeau, because what do we have? 4 in a row now. We have 4 in a row. We're going to, like I said, if we run the table, we're in. So
that is for sure. They are now. The Packers are now 8-6. The Lions are 9-5, and the Packers now have their destiny firmly in their hands because the Lions lost this week. So it doesn't matter what the Lions do this week. If the Packers win over Minnesota and over Detroit, they are division champions and in the playoffs. That's the easiest way to say it.
They're in. Yep, they're in. Just hope hope the injuries. Let's see. What's the latest injury report in some of these guys?
Well, I haven't heard too much out of it. Aaron's obviously going to be taking it easy over the course of the week, especially with the short week here. But Clay did play some last week here, so seems like the big guns are starting to get healthy at the right time. It sounds like Aaron's even doing better on Monday than he was on Sunday with his calf injury.
Yeah, he gets a calf, that calf thing. He's gone through that before, so he's taking it easy this week, I understand. But and then and I kind of Ty Montgomery, he's got that bad shoulder, so hopefully it's not too bad. He's going to be ready.
Yeah, I can imagine he's looking forward to adding to his his team leading rushing totals at this point. He is now the leading rusher for the Packers this season.
Yeah, I tell you, they're looking good, but God, they went to sleep there for 10, 12 minutes there in that fourth quarter, and they almost gave the Bears too much juice. I couldn't believe it there in the end. And then, when Aaron pulled that thing back and let the bomb go, and Jordy made one heck of a catch over his shoulder there, over his head, man, it's just a fantastic finish. Just a fantastic finish. So
yeah, that they did. They went into the fourth quarter ahead by 27-10, and you could just tell the defense was back on their heels. I know that they benched Demarius Randall in the middle of the fourth quarter. Maybe he was a little bit too far on their heels, but this feels like something that's happened before. I want to say it was the Detroit game earlier this year, where the Packers had a big lead going into the fourth quarter and just sat back. Didn't apply pressure and just let the other team pick them apart underneath. It doesn't help to stop that deep ball if you're not going to be able to make plays underneath as well. They just kind of let the Bears come right back into the game.
Yeah, and it's too bad that happened, and that's kind of opens up, kind of a flaw a little bit, maybe like an Achilles heel, but potentially an Achilles heel. If they go ahead with that attitude and don't have that emotion that they need to have this week. But on the other side of the coin, though, I don't think they're going to let that happen, again, at least not in the foreseeable future, because they came doggone close last week to being on the short end of that score. And if it wasn't for, a team effort and those guys sticking together and pulling that off like they did, it was just a fantastic finish, and I just hope they can continue that run on that. Get these next two and then get ready for the playoffs. Right now, we're in the wild card. Aren't we number 6 in the wild card right now? I believe.
Yeah. At this point, the way things stand, the Packers are number 6.
Right.
With the wild card now, they would need some help if they don't win the division, which means they would have lost either to Minnesota or to Detroit, which let's not contemplate at the moment. But if they did need that, they need quite a few other teams to lose to continue to maintain a wild card spot. So they're not sewn up quite yet.
No, yeah. Well, like you said earlier, Joe, they're the Packers have their destiny in their own hands. They're in their own hands, and we just have to, we have to close the door and lock it and finish the season and then get ready for the playoffs. That's what we have to do. But and the Vikings, the Vikings are always a good test too, and anything can happen. But I firmly believe that the Packers are at least they're a better team, and hopefully they're going to pull ahead for. I think they'll beat them hopefully by I'm guessing maybe 10, 13, 14 points this week. I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah, that is definitely the hope. Now, I do have the official NFL playoff clinching scenario up here. So the Packers could possibly clinch a playoff berth this week, but it's going to take a lot. It would include the Packers winning, of course.
Right.
Either Washington losing or tying their game. Tampa Bay would have to lose. Atlanta would have to win or tie. And this is one that I haven't even done the math for because it gives me a headache even thinking about it. Green Bay would have to clinch a strength of victory tiebreaker over Tampa Bay, which would require, I believe, a couple other teams winning or losing that in games that don't seem to have anything to do with it.
Yeah,
and I think I remember Denver would have to beat Kansas City or something crazy just to give the Packers, or either the Packers or the Buccaneers, enough wins or losses in that whole scenario.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces of that puzzle you just outlined.
Yeah, the easiest way to think of it is the Packers win this week and they go play for their playoff life in 17.
Take care of business in Lambeau this Saturday, and then get ready for the last game of the season over in Detroit, January
exactly
1st.
It.
Yeah, that's
they only have to worry. They only have to worry about all this stuff I'm talking about at the moment if they happen to lose one of these next 2 games, which I'm really hoping they don't. But I guess moving on a bit to the next week's game against Minnesota, Minnesota's really had their struggles lately.
They have. They started off hot. They had a real hot hand. Bradford. He got injured. He got hurt somewhat, and they've had their problems with running backs, and like all the teams do pretty much through the season. 16 regular season games. That's a lot of games, and the key to it is keeping healthy. And the teams that don't have the severe injuries, etc. throughout the and everybody does. Everybody will have their fair share throughout the season with that many games and playing at that high level of intensity that they have. But it seems like the law of averages has caught up with Minnesota. They're not the real good team everybody thought they were the first month of the season. But it's still the NFL, and it's still the old black and blue division. And as we know, anything can happen, as we saw, in the fourth quarter last week down in Chicago. But hopefully with that experience that they went through and they're able to pull that game out again, that experience of almost losing that game and coming up with the big play that they're not going to put themselves in that position behind the 8 ball against Minnesota this week. They're going to go out early and take care of business early and often, and to get a lead and keep the doggone thing. Don't let them back into it.
Right, exactly. So the Vikings have had a lot of problems with their offensive line as of late. The Packers early in the season had a ton of injury trouble at running back and in the secondary. But those seem to have patched themselves up in some way, shape, or form, and the Packers seem to be okay. But the Vikings have never gotten a handle on those offensive line injuries. They haven't unearthed a gem like the Packers did with Ty Montgomery to fill their running back slot. So they're still going to be in trouble, especially if the Packers can dial up some of the pass rush that they've had.
Yeah, and they're playing better ball. I mean, Green Bay's playing much better ball now than they were, a few weeks ago when they're struggling through those injuries and having that kind of run of bad luck. But as we discussed last week, the good thing is they're playing good football right now, and they're playing good football in the right time of the year, in December, and carry that great football, that good football, minimum injuries, no mental mistakes, no stupid penalties, playing good, solid football, and carry that into January. We should be okay. We should be set to hopefully make a run, because I'd sure like to see him down in Houston. I plan on being in Houston this year for that Super Bowl, and I would love to have the green and gold there.
That would definitely be the ultimate. It seemed like the Packers may have escaped their hiccup in the fourth quarter. It's really hard to win games, run off a big string of games right in a row, and Packers need to do that just to make the playoffs and then have 4 more to go likely. But maybe they got away with one this past week where they had that hiccup in a game that they might have lost. They pulled it out.
Yeah, I sure hope they did, and they will continue that good fortune and that good solid football. Just don't go to sleep for 10, 15, 12 minutes like they did there for a while. But they will. I think everything. I think everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be good. And and then we got to get past Minnesota, and then we got to Lions have a good team. I think I mentioned it to you a week or two ago. They're kind of my sleeper. I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay doesn't make it, that if the Lions could go and be very respectable for the old black and blue division, but I'd much rather have the green and gold than the silver and blue.
Right. You definitely want the green and gold, but yeah, the Lions seem to be making their way through with fourth quarter comebacks. So even if we're talking about a Week 17 game for the division, the Packers are going to have to play 4 quarters in that game for sure, because Matthew Stafford, he doesn't get talked about too much, but he is one of those guys that you cannot go to sleep on. He is going to tear you apart in the fourth quarter. He's been making his living on that this year. I think they had something out of their 9 wins, something like 8 of them were fourth quarter comebacks. Right.
Yeah, I've always been impressed with him. I always thought he's a pretty doggone good quarterback myself, and now he's got some good teammates around him, and pretty good offensive philosophy and stuff. But again, that's next week. We got to get past the Vikings this week and just run the table. Continue that run, and run the table, and don't go to sleep behind the 8 ball, and just get the job done, which we're very capable of doing.
Right. It almost seems like every time Rodgers says something quotable, like relax or we'll run the table, something good's going to happen.
Yeah.
We need to have him come up with something every week.
Yeah, and I think he made that statement too a few weeks ago, didn't he, or something? All we have to do now is run the table.
Back when they were 4 and 6, it's like, we just have to run the table then.
Yeah, right. Just run the table. Yeah. No problem. When you want the job done, just give it to the gun. Give it to Aaron. So
Yeah, he seems to be shaking off. It seemed like over the past season and a half, there was just something just a tiny bit off, just
right.
a fraction of a step here, a little ball, a leading receiver just a touch too far there. It seems like that's gone away over the past 2 weeks again.
Yeah, the timing wasn't quite there. You're right. It was either a half a step behind or a little bit over. Just there, they weren't clicking on all cylinders. But they're playing good ball now. Jordy's playing good ball. Devontae, after a couple of drops there, no one feels worse than the receiver when that happens, except maybe the quarterback.
but you might not be looking at that receiver with a kind eye.
The main thing is they stuck together and they hung in there and they found a way to to get through all that negative happenings there in the fourth quarter and find a way to win that game against the Bears and hopefully this is just going to give us the momentum to continue the run.
Now, I suppose I should ask, too, have you ever had games like that where one of your better receivers just couldn't make the plays, and then all of a sudden late in the game you made that one big one to help spring you?
Yeah. We've had that, too. We've had running backs that fumble, and all of a sudden, boom, they'll break one for a big gain and a touchdown and whatever, and, they do, redeem themselves, Quarterbacks do the same thing. You throw a pick or INT here and there, and boom, and then you just can't think. You're not clicking on all cylinders, and all of a sudden something happens, and you'll throw a game-winning touchdown pass, or sometimes you just make a key audible. You change the play at the line of scrimmage, or make a key call, and call the right play at the right time, and boom, and they go, where did you pull that out of? Where'd you get that play out of? And so. It just those things happen. That's what makes football just a great game. Football is a game of mistakes. That's what Lombardi always said. Most coaches do. It's a game of mistakes, and usually the team that makes the least amount of mistakes should win. But that's not always the case. But the main thing is that no one's perfect, and you strive to do your best at all times, and that's what he always said. Paraphrase. You chase perfection, and hopefully in the pursuit of perfection you can achieve or catch excellence, and and that's what we have to do this week. Just play well, just few mistakes, no injuries, least amount of mistakes, and then come out on top.
And that game plan won more often than not, that's for sure, and hopefully that's the game plan for this week as well against Minnesota. And hopefully they decided that it's a little bit too cold for them to play, and it becomes I think the Packers could use a breather, but I don't think so. I think the Vikings they got heart behind them. They don't have a lot else going for them at the moment, but they're not going to lay down for a division rival.
No, well, none of those teams do, and they don't. I mean, the old black and blue division, as Van Brocken used to say. I mean. Those teams in that old black and blue, they play for pride, and they play in the elements. Except now, Minnesota, yeah, that's right, yeah, they don't play in the elements anymore up there, and neither does Detroit. So, to me, the two tough teams are Green Bay and Chicago. Those are the tough guys, those are the tough guys because they still play in the elements. So.
Yeah, we never let them forget it either. It was nice to have the Vikings out at the Gopher Stadium these past few years. Get a kind of a glimpse of what it may have been like, but even then Detroit was still in their pretty little dome, and not that they've done much winning in those. The Vikings, ever since they've gotten the roof, hasn't been the same either, so you almost wonder if that takes a little bit out of the franchise.
Yeah, it could be. You wonder why they do that. I know they had the Super Bowl up there, once, or it's going to be up there again fairly soon. Is it Minnesota, Detroit here? It's coming up, I think, the Super Bowl, and then. But they build those beautiful indoor stadiums. They're fine, they're beautiful, but they probably do that more for the fans and the comfort. The players. I mean, a lot of these players don't like. I don't know. To me, I guess I'm too old, but I still like the old time religion and playing in the elements sometimes.
Yeah, it just gives it a little bit more character, that's all, instead of it was even worse probably when all the domes and turf came around, because it all felt like the same place. I mean, now at least some of the new indoor stadiums have a bit of character to them as well, but you lose just a tiny bit when you don't have the elements to engage with, to have to plan around. Because like you said, football's a game of mistakes, and the elements can definitely add to the degree of difficulty and make for an interesting ball game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's so true. And that's what football's all about. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, let's hope that the Green Bay Packers are all about winning this next week, and we could talk about a division final, basically, between the Packers and the Lions next week. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm with you 110% on that. Let's get by this here and come out on top, and then I'll talk to you next week, and everybody have a Merry Christmas.
All right, and that's from me, too. You've been listening to the Green and Gold Weekly at thegreentruth.net, where the legends speak.